Today on a very special episode of Jimmy's Taste Test. I'm actually in Vancouver right now in my 14-day quarantine. So when you come here, you have to quarantine isolation for yourself for 14 days. I'm in day 7 right now. It's fine. It's fine. I got NFL football, I got beers, and weed is totally legal here, so I got some delivered for free. They don't even check your ID. You just check a box, tell them you're 19. Weed comes to your house in like an hour. It's pretty amazing. And there's been some great food in Vancouver. It's known for its Chinese food, its Vietnamese food, some of the best in the world. So after this 14-day quarantine, I'm gonna shoot this movie called Love Hard with one and only Nina Dobrev. It's gonna be a very fun rom-com. You're gonna see your boy doing a rom-com here. So I'm very excited about that. And really the one thing that's keeping me sane and alive during this quarantine, it's all the great Asian food and Chinese food. So today in Jimmy's Taste Test, this might be interesting because this is not really a real restaurant. It's actually my uncle's food catering place. They're such good chefs. My uncle and aunt lives in Vancouver. Every Chinese person has an uncle and aunt that lives in Vancouver, I think. They're so good at making just traditional Shanghainese food. They actually sell some of their stuff, the tangyuan, like the little dessert dough balls, to like the most highest end Chinese restaurants. So today I was lucky enough, my cousin came by outside the door, no contact. He dropped off some food. And this is honestly one of my favorite meals of all time. Sorry, Dad, I don't know. You know, this is kind of better than our home cooking. So this right here, just little tiny shrimps with some, I guess, bamboo and like green onions and oil. So in Shanghainese, we call this huyu. Literally means shrimp oil. So you mix this with like this warm, beautiful noodle that's already kind of soaking in oil and soy sauce. So this is what you do. You put it right in here just a little bit at a time. This is still warm, it just got here. You can really smell the beautiful smell of like a good Chinese soy sauce. Maybe a little vinegar and also definitely sesame oil. You can smell sesame oil in here. Oh, you want the oil and the sauce, mix it in. This is actually just one of the simplest yet most delicious things you can eat. It's all about the sauce to noodle ratio. You don't want it to be too salty and you don't want it to be too bland. And man, my uncle just make it right. And aunt. Shout out to them. Let's see. Let's give it a taste. It's so simple. Really, you're tasting the sesame oil and the shrimp flavor just a little bit. But mostly it's just soy sauce and it's very simple. But it's so good. And it's so, not filling, but it's fulfilling. Get that on record. It just, there's something homey about it. And it's not in your face. It's not too salty. It's no MSG. It's not too vinegary. It's just like the perfect blend of a good lunch. A shrimp is bouncy. You can tell this is fresh, probably like river shrimp, I'm guessing. I don't know, maybe it's bay shrimp. But you know, a lot of shrimps in America, maybe in Canada too, has that weird ammonia flavor, kind of irony, and it just tastes like frozen shrimp. This shrimp, completely fresh, none of that weird flavor, and it kept that nice bounce to it. Sometimes if you eat, you know, whole shrimp that you gotta peel, a good way to tell if a shrimp's fresh or it's good, if it's bouncy, is if the shell peels right off the shrimp. If it doesn't, it gets kind of stuck on it, that shrimp's kind of no good. It's so good. It's so simple. And they sent me a couple of homemade hot sauce. You got the Lee Kum Kee on the top, but that's how you know it's homemade. They peel off the side, and then you got the plastic on it. That's how you know this is a good homemade sauce. So let me try a little bit of that. So a trick that I learned, instead of digging a chopstick that has your saliva in the soy sauce, you want the soy sauce to keep it. You don't want it to spoil. So you use the back of your chopstick that you haven't touched with your mouth, scoop out some soy sauce, so now you got a clean vessel going into the soy sauce. Go to a Chinese restaurant, Cantonese restaurant, you ask for la jiu yao, or in Mandarin, la jiao you. That means like shrimp oil, like hu you, like that means chili oil. So that's what you want, and that's where a lot of flavor is. Let me try this. Very good. It's a little crispy. Reminds me a little of that lao gan mao, which I love so much, but a little spicier, a little more oily. So this go really good with dumplings and wontons, which they also brought me. They brought me a bunch of handmade frozen wontons and dumplings. So I'm gonna try those too. Yes, very excited. And of course, what's Shanghainese food without Hong Sao Rou, the red braised pork, the soy sauce braised pork, and Hong Sao Dan, the braised eggs. So this is just traditional fatty pork belly. And it's cooked in like a deep soy sauce. Here, let me get you a good piece. So all of that's the lean meat. And then you got some fattiness on the top. And the skin, there's no hair on the skin, because I think they torched it in the grocery markets when I was a kid in Hong Kong. You see like the market people torching the skin so to get all the hair off, the pork skin. It's kind of like giving the piggy LASIK. And when you bite it, you want to bite it this way. It's like a burger. You want to get a little bit of the fat and a little bit of lean meat at the same time. So let's try it. See, it's so good. And just layers of flavor. But that little creamy fatness, it's like the pork butter. What do you call that? Lard? It's kind of like lard. And it's just so good. It fills up the entire flavor. And the lean pork is very tender. Cooked at a perfect amount where it's not like completely falling apart with no texture. But at the same time, it doesn't get stuck in your teeth when it's undercooked. So this is perfectly cooked. You see the little fat that's connecting to it, that's where a lot of your flavor is. When you braise it in that soy sauce, it just becomes kind of like this beautiful jelly glowing like amber color. It's amazing, and it's a traditional Shanghai dish. Most famous Shanghai restaurants will be known for this, and this is just great. So Oh, wow. So satisfying. It's so simple. I gotta learn the recipe of how to make this noodle. It's honestly so simple, but it has all my favorite flavors. Sesame oil, shrimp, scallion, bamboo, soy sauce. What more can you ask for? Amazing. It's also the egg, the braised egg. You see what they did here? I never thought to do this. They cut a little slit on each side, so I guess the egg doesn't explode, or maybe the flavor gets into it a little more. I'm gonna start doing that. So when Chinese people boil egg, it's rare that we just eat a hard-boiled egg. You know, maybe for breakfast. It's kind of like a British thing, maybe in Hong Kong. Even in 7-Eleven in Shanghai, you'll find an egg braised and soaked in tea, especially in Taiwan. It's amazingly delicious, flavorful egg. It's not like a Japanese ramen egg where it's yolky inside. It's actually, you know, it's hard-boiled. It's been soaking for a long time, so all the flavor gets into the inside. Here, let me bite it open for you. The yolk. You see, it's not like a bright yellow color. It's kind of like a darkish, infused with soy sauce color. And the only way you do it is, I guess, cutting, you don't have to cut these slits, but cutting these slits probably help, is soaking it and hard boiling it for a long time in juice, you know, whereas it's soy sauce, it's tea leaf soy sauce, whatever it may be. Beautiful. God, that yolk had just so much flavor. I can eat this all day. Probably not good for my cholesterol. I got an Airbnb in East Vancouver for the quarantine because it's a house, there's a front lawn, and I'm probably gonna move to downtown where it's happening when after the quarantine, during my shoot, so I can hang out. And apparently all the bars and everything are mostly open in Vancouver because there's only, I don't know, 10, 20, 80 max new cases a day, less than 100 new cases a day. But they're very cautious. With less than 100 new cases a day, the Canadian government is already making everyone that come into this country self-isolate, quarantine for 14 days. If I get caught, say I walk outside, and somehow, some way, a cop catches me or my neighbor snitches on me, I can get fined up to $750,000, a year banned from Canada, and up to 6 months in jail. Yeah, you don't want to mess around with that. They're very serious about their quarantine, which I love. We should do that. It's a pandemic. Let's work together, get safe, get healthy so we can get back out there, you know? Whereas LA is just 1,000 cases and people are just hanging out by the beach. Bunch of idiots. Hey. I know I slurped my noodles a little earlier. That's a compliment when you eat ramen in Japan, I believe. We shouldn't do that with Chinese food. So just eat it very quaint. Yeah. So Jimmy score. I gotta give a Jimmy score. I mean, even as my uncle's restaurant, I'm just gonna give it a very objective Jimmy score. On taste, I mean, maybe we don't go crazy and give it a 10 out of 10. Maybe we'll get a 9.5. That all depends on how much into Shanghainese food you are. For Shanghainese food, it's a 10 out of 10 basically in Shanghainese food. It's better than most things I've had. And it has that home cooking comfort factor. And you know it's clean, it's not messed with in the restaurant or package or anything like that. So for now, let's give it a 9.5 on taste. And on value, hard to say. It's free. My cousin dropped it out for me. So I guess a 10 out of 10 on value. Man, this is just unfair. 19.5, but I guess they deserve it. If you can somehow find it, I mean, I'll pay a lot of money for this. At the end of the day, I guess the moral of the story is there's just nothing better than a great home cook. It reminds you of home. Appreciate your parents. Appreciate your uncles.